mic check, no are you guys ready, no countdown. It's just music starts, we're ready to go. Thank you, Eagle.
He gave us the countdown.
Yeah, he did give us the countdown, but we didn't get the warning before we're on air. So thankfully for us, we were.
You are correct.
Yeah. So we are here in the Sportiera cage. Alex Holloway with me. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Eagle.
Yeah, thank you very much.
This is Calling the Audible. It's Division 4, 4A and 4B. Our last podcast of the regular season.
Oh, so fast, isn't it?
Yeah, it is so
Isn't
fast.
it crazy?
We get to the real meat and potatoes. We're going to do a little recap first, though. Rancerz against the Gators, 26-22. Very, very interesting game. A little chirpy, a little physical, back and forth. At one point, Gators had to play with 5 due to 2 OCs and a UR. Not an ideal situation, but Rancerz on the other end, they're coming out of the woodwork, winning 3 straight. Tell us a little bit more.
Definitely. So, definitely some playoff caliber football, right? As we gear up and inch closer to the second season, the big dance, if you will, especially coinciding with the beginning of March Madness. You can see that always at this time of year, teams start to get a little bit more chirpy, a little bit more physical. They start to, have a little bit more edge to their game, and that's definitely something that the Rancerz have been showing for the last 3 weeks on a 3-game winning streak. 3 weeks ago, they were sitting at 2-4-1. They had lost consecutive games to Team Ethnic and Alpha T's, 2 of the stronger opponents in the division, and they turned it around with gritty defense and strong team play. But 2 standout guys have to be mentioned here for their spectacular impact, and you can say almost the heroic impact over the last couple of weeks, which has transpired and turned the season around. Louis-Christophe Lafontaine and Marc-André Paradis. Over the last 3 games, the former has 4 TDs receiving, 50 yards per game, while the latter has 4 INTs out of his 8 on the season. So they're both guys who've really elevated their game in the critical moments and deserve attention for that. And the Rancerz are now formidable because of it.
Yeah, these are 2 guys who play with Les Udistes in Division 3, former Jean Eudes alumni. They've really led the team. They brought in guys who haven't been familiar names or faces to the league for a little while now. They brought back Jeremy Coutier, who played with the Rude Boys ages ago.
And you had mentioned early in the year that they were Les Udistes light, if you will. Mm-hmm. And it was, we were waiting for them to form their identity as they stumble out the gates a bit, and they've come on strong in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I feel like this is the team where when you look at that roster and you look at them, they passed the eye test and they're starting to play more cohesively as a group. They're learning the game for those who aren't as familiar with it. And like you said, these 2 are standouts and they lead by example. On the flip side, should we be worried about the Gators, or is this just kind of the calm before the storm?
Well, to be quite honest, I'm worried a little bit about their offense at this point. Their D is good enough to have them compete with the top teams in the division. They've won some big games over the last couple of weeks specifically to keep themselves in the playoff race, but those have been low-scoring games. So, for a championship team that averages around 25 points per game, that ain't going to cut it, when the cream starts to rise to the top and you start to play against the best opponents. Corey Wolowski. I'm sorry, Corey.
It's okay.
Corey Wolowski he hasn't shown much improvement this year over the last couple of seasons. Unfortunately, we thought coming in with this roster, this iteration of the Gators, he had Osman, he had Golano, he had some of the regular staples which have come to define this roster, and it just hasn't really enabled him to elevate his game to that next level like we thought it would. He's always been more on the high side of INTs. This year, his TDs have also taken a little bit of a hit so far. So he's definitely going to have to pick his game up extra notch in the playoffs. But this is the thing about the Gators, right? This is the wild card about them, is that they're so veteran, they're so gritty, they're so clutch. And they're so fetch. That's a pretty cool word. We'll throw it in now. That you can't bet against them. They could still turn it up, especially going into the playoffs when it matters most.
So, of these 2 teams, you have the more tested, albeit in a lower division of the Gators. That they've been in the finals in Division 5. Yeah. They're a perennial staple that have moved up, and so that as well. The interceptions also come with playing in a higher division. But of these 2 teams, so you have the stronger but more unknown Rancerz, and you have the more familiar but more inconsistent Gators. Who do you see as a dark horse in this situation?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, right? Because it's hard to pick against the Gators, but I'm going with the Rancerz at this point. They're a hot team. They're in the midst of a resurgence, and they're also a team that's very unfamiliar to a lot of regular rosters in this division. So they have that unknown quantity effect to their side, and I think that's going to pay big dividends in the playoffs, especially if they continue playing the way they have in recent weeks. So I'll take the Rancerz on that.
I like that. So next game on the docket, Get Off My D 33, the U 31. Huge 19-point comeback by GMD. Are you surprised considering the sort of discussion we had about this game at the end of last week?
I wish I was surprised, but sadly the Hollowak curse has struck the U again, and they now stand 0-3 in big games where I've picked them. I'm mesmerized and a bit scared of the exceptional power that I have over choosing these games.
It's a good thing we didn't put a third pitcher on this.
It's a very good thing for me. I was wise enough at least to stay out of that bet. In all honesty, this was a great win for Get Off My D. Statement win directed specifically to the Alpha T's, who Alpha T's beat the U last week. So the Get Off My D is saying we could beat them too. So let's get ready for that rematch in the playoffs. The conference finals of Conference B should be huge. On the opposite side, the U should be very thankful right now that they sit in Conference A and not Conference B, because they've shown in the last 2 weeks that they can't beat the two top teams of Conference B. So, you know what? Good for them. They could still do their thing in Conference A, but great game. Jadaridi was a man possessed in this one. 7 catches, 90 yards, 2 TDs, and an INT on defense. So he really brought he stepped his game up when it mattered most.
I just wanted to, I mentioned it in the Div 3 podcast. I'm going to shout it out in Div 4 as well, because Marty Friedman plays in Div 4. Yeah. Marty Friedman played back-to-back games on Tuesday night in that shitstorm of a blizzard. So just
And on top of that,
to Marty and anyone else who showed up to Kirkland on Tuesday, by the way,
for sure. And go Marty. If you're gonna dig your car out of 20 feet of snow and drive in the Arctic terrain to get to Kirkland, might as well play 3 games, right? And he also got the Triple Crown in this one. He won all 3 games, huge wins that would probably have been considered upsets before the week began. So a big week for Marty Friedman.
Huge. And looking forward to the playoffs. Are we primed to see games as close as one like this across the board? Sort of the comebacks in this situation.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're foreshadowing a bit to our transition topic this week. We'll look a bit at playoff matchups, but there is just some heavy matchups across the board. And 1 through 8, 8 versus 1, 2 versus 7. There practically not much difference between these teams at this point. So there's going to be some very interesting bracketology this season.
Bracketology, I like it, considering March Madness as well.
Trying to get as many of those topical puns in as I can throughout the episode.
The last game on the docket, STL Cougars 39, Blue Chips 26. It's been sort of interesting for Blue Chips. On the flip side, though, Erminio Yadaluka making a case for himself as a quarterback of the year. We will touch upon those nominations a little bit later with the new format, but tell us about Yadaluka in this game. So
Yadaluka in this game, he put up another 5 touchdowns, another 200 yards, something he's been doing all year. He's a big time player this season for the STL Cougars. They say the best players step up their game in the clutch, and that's what he's done. The Cougars were sitting at 1-3 after 4 weeks. They needed a hero, and Erminio Yadaluka answered the call. Right, he's played huge. And the other thing is, you're not going to go into Stade Bear and the house that was built by the Cougars.
That's their turf.
That's their home turf, and beat Yadaluka without bringing the heavy artillery. And I don't think the Blue Chips brought anywhere near of the heavy enough artillery in this matchup to take out Yadaluka.
So what's going on with the Blue Chips? Does the decline since because it seemed like at the beginning of the season we were talking about how strong the Blue Chips were, how great they were a fit in this division, and does their decline suddenly worry you?
Yeah, you know what? Let's just say out of the Blue Chips and the Gators, the little skid is much more worrisome for the Blue Chips at this point for me, because as we spoke about the Gators, they have a track record of beating adversity, especially rising when they've shown a couple of slips here and there. The Blue Chips have no such history, right? We haven't seen this Blue Chips team pushed against the brink and come back from it yet. We've seen them crumble in Division B. They still put up a fight, but they were mismatched, and we've seen them come out on fire, and now lately they've taken a punch to the face. Let's see how they respond to that, And one of the telltale signs, I think, in this losing streak has been the regressed play of Jordan Mitchell. In the last 3 games, he's only thrown for 115 yards, 7 TDs to 7 INTs. So as effective as he is as a rusher, when you get to the playoffs, when you get to see teams a second time, the good teams are going to make they're going to adapt their game. Yep. They're going to make their adjustments, and they're going to force force you to be balanced more, to throw. You don't have to necessarily throw,
or
but you
even
have to
force
be
you
more
outside
balanced.
your comfort zone.
Outside your comfort zone, and it seems like it's been happening a little bit more to Jordan, and he hasn't responded very well lately. But that's to say they still have a chance to prove us wrong, right? Everybody has a fresh slate in the second season.
So speaking of the second season, it's very interesting considering that 4B at this moment is the only division where all the spots are locked in. At least you can still battle for position, but the top 8 in each conference are absolutely locked in. So just before we bring it will be up on the screen, but at the same time, I just wanted to shout out and thank Vicieux, Small Giants, the Jays, the Vikings, Mean Machine, the Falcons, Green Lantern Corps, and the Expendables for a great season with us here. We'll touch upon the games at the end, but from here on out, it will be playoffs next week, so I know that we may not mention these teams, so I just wanted to give that shout out as well. Just if you're looking at the playoff the playoff tree on the board right now, Conference A, so you've got A squad at the top, Jaeger Bomb, the U, Blue Chips at 4th, despite their sort of spiral right now, LBB, Les Bleus Branleurs at 5, Mud Dogs at 6, Gators at 7, and Obamacare at 8. What interests you about this?
You know what? Everything as it lays out right now. This would be an ideal dream bracket for me going into the first round of the playoffs. I could realistically see all upsets in these matchups, meaning 5, 6, 7, and 8 all beat their higher seeded opponents,
which is very entertaining for us. We're not playing in this division. It's going to be great to watch. You don't have to worry about these matchups. But if you are on the flip side in 4B right now, be worried, be prepared, bring your A game, because nothing else will suffice at this point.
Your 4B game. Get it?
No, your 4B game won't get you far in the playoffs. You got to bring your 4A game. You got to bring your Div 3 game. So great matchups, right? Like if just to touch upon briefly, right? Who would have thought that Obamacare would be sitting in the 8th seed, right? What a great team in a low ranking. They've had a tough schedule. They've taken a couple of losses, and now they sit primed to deliver a possible huge first round upset, right? And the same thing can be said about Gators in the 7th seed.
It's very interesting considering this is one of the more recent seasons where we've done that experiment where we take Division 4 and cut it in half. And whereas last season there was a bit of a divide between the top teams and the bottom teams in 4B, whereas here, like you said, we're primed for all upsets. So we're very, very close, and it's very entertaining.
Very fortunate about having a very rich and loaded Division 4B. I covered Div 5 in my article, and there you can see more of a divide between 5A and 5B in that division. But here, the 4B teams are filthy. They could, in my opinion, easily compete in 4A.
And so for Conference B, top to bottom, Alpha T's, no surprise there. Number 1, Get Off My D, 2, who have been springboarding here. Team Ethnic, Sphinx, STL Cougars, Game Changers, Rancerz, and Sandlot Saints, who have made their way into the playoffs. Congratulations on that.
Definitely. And they've been playing very good football lately. Very close-fought, gritty games, right? And that makes them something you wouldn't have said 2 weeks ago, considering especially the season the Alpha T's are having. But now this will be kind of an interesting matchup to watch, especially since the first time they faced each other, Sandlot Saints were a lot closer than a lot of people would have thought that game would have ended. So once again, some interesting matchups. I think that this one, there will be more of sticking to the script. Some of the top tier teams will win in this first round. Less potential for upsets. But then again, who are we to know? You know, like anything can happen when it's all played out.
The Week 10 matchups, though, however, will also shake things up a little bit more. We may see movement here that the perceived 1 versus 8 seed may not end up playing each other, but it is still very
a guy can dream, though, can he?
Absolutely.
If these were to be the first round matchups, I would be salivating, and I'd be driving to the field as fast as I can to check them out.
So just quick game predictions. We don't have as many games to cover here because of the Super Bowl bye week and the teams that are left over from that. But give me your thoughts on this one. Vicieux against Gators.
Yeah, so Gators coming off of a loss. They had 2 big wins, though, prior, so I'm not going to pronounce them as dead in the mud right now. I think the Gators are going to come back, bounce back strong, win this game, and gain that momentum they need to get back to their Gator style of football for the playoffs. So give me the Gators in this one versus the Vicieux.
LBB versus Obamacare.
A very interesting game, right? LBB is actually on a 6-game winning streak, if you can believe it. This is insane. Obamacare has been up and down in the second half of the season. They've gotten rocked a bit. They've rocked a couple of teams as well. I'm gonna take LBB. They're just too hot right now.
This is one of those ones. I like the physicality. I like the disciplined defense that Obamacare bring to the table. great rush as well. So at this point, it's tough to go against Obamacare, even though they are the lower seed.
They are, and the perception is actually, in my mind, that Obamacare should be considered the favorite going into this game, even if they are a lower seed. That just shows how great these playoff matchups are going to be.
Small Giants against Jägerbomb.
Yeah, Small Giants not going to be in the playoffs this year. Still playing a little bit better in the second half of the season. Jägerbomb, though, trying to just get ready for the playoff drive. I'm going to take the Jägerbomb as they're going to play their game, their style of game. They're going to want to definitely get their rhythm going. So give me the Jägerbomb in this one.
I think that this one will be closer than we think it will be. However, I still see Jägerbomb coming out ahead, largely due to their experience in that department. The U against Blue Chips.
Yeah. What a game, eh? Here we go. What a game. What are the questions that Blue Chips are going to have to answer in this one? They're going to have to answer, can they play against the top tier teams in the division? And this is where they're going to have their chance. Well, you can
play against a top tier team in the division. You have to win.
Can they win? Can they win? Especially going to the playoffs. Can they win? And can they establish their game, I guess is what I really wanted to say, their style of play. I think the U is going to bump Blue Chips off their game. I think that other teams that aren't as good as the U have shown the capability to do so in the past few weeks, and there's some big question marks for the Blue Chips potential in the playoffs in this one. I'm going to take the U on the win, and the Blue Chips are going to have to gear up for the playoffs after this one.
Sandlot Saints against Green Lantern Corps. Green Lantern Corps coming off a win this week as well.
Sorry, the U also. I'm picking you guys again, even though it's been 0-3, but the streak's got to break eventually. In this game, give me the Sandlot Saints sneaking into that 8th seed, looking to solidify themselves a bit, and also looking to gear up for what they have to battle for their lives here against the Alpha T's in the first round of the playoffs if it ends up that way. So give me the Sandlot Saints over GLC.
Jays against the Vikings.
Very good game, right? Very good game for both these teams to kind of wrap up their season. I think the Jays, just their connection, their chemistry, the long to Dussault matchup connection that's been so formidable over the years. I think that their offense is going to thrive and push them through for the win. What do you think about this feel good Week 11 game?
I think that at this point, the Jays are just a little bit more consistent. They have overall a little bit more experience, and despite the rough season that they've had, I see the Jays winning this one as well. And it would be, as you said, a feel-good way to end the season for them.
Yeah, definitely. But also, to the Vikings' point, they've been playing some great defense lately, so maybe that'll put a fork into the Jays' plans. But we'll see how it goes.
The Expendables against Team Ethnic. Will this one be close?
Team Ethnic. I saw them play for the first time since early in the season this week. I caught a glimpse of their amazing last-second win, and they play really well. Benoit Loyler,
very disciplined quarterback.
Very disciplined quarterback. He also throws a beautiful ball. And he doesn't put much air under it. He throws it like a dart. So him and Garofalo, that they connect like Wi-Fi on most weeks. I'm going to take Team Ethnic to continue in this one and to get ready.
I like your analogy there. Sphinx against the Game Changers. Very, very interesting. I think this is an underrated match as well. We kind of glossed over Game Changers throughout the season, but they're in the playoffs. So this is where the magic is going to happen.
It's interesting, right? And there is a scenario that could transpire where they end up playing against each other in the first round of the playoffs as well. So the Game Changers have had an interesting season, to be as polite as possible. They had high expectations because of the name value of this team, and they've just, because of roster inconsistencies, injuries, it hasn't panned out that way. I think the Sphinx, who are a very experienced team coming off a championship last year and who are going to surprise in the playoffs, right? Mark my words right now, they're going to at least surprise for the first round, perhaps the second. The Sphinx are going to take this game, and it's going to be a good matchup, though.
Okay, so just before we leave for break, I wanted to discuss with you the award nominees and the different format. We'll get your take on it. If anyone is watching the show, which they're not, you can tweet. Oh, we have 3 people. So tweet in as well. Let us know your opinion on this or on anything in Division 4 at Eagle FPF, and we will read it on air if it's FPF related.
Ask us a question live in the second half, and we will respond.
So the new format is that so long as you're not nominated for an award in a higher division, you're eligible for an award in that division that you play in. So say you play in Division 3, 4, and 5, which is my case. I'm not going to there's no way I'm going to be nominated in Division 3 or Division 4, so I would be eligible for award in Division 5. I'm not going to be, by the way, just putting that out there. It's not going to happen for me unless I play in Division 6 with a brand new team and they just feed me the ball every week. But Yeah, so this new format, I guess, allows players who are, despite being, say, higher division role players or not necessarily dominant in those higher divisions, a chance to contribute in lower divisions. We threw around maybe a cap rating for award winners, but ultimately this was the decision that was decided upon for this season. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan, a huge proponent. I like it. I think it's a great compromise over the two extremes, which were one which we had before, where if you played in a higher division, you weren't eligible in a lower division, and the other one where you're just eligible in any division. This is a great middle ground because exactly as P's addressed in his Facebook message, if a guy were to be a role player on a Division 3 team but truly thrive in Division 4, it's really unfair that he'd be denied that award, that recognition in Division 4, which is more so his home turf, if you will. So I'm a big fan. I'm a big proponent of this one. Who came up with this idea? Do you know?
It was discussed and tossed around between the league executive, and that was the decision that was made.
Well, there were the few ideas going around, like GM mentioned. We had a cap system at one point. We had a way to try for everyone. This is kind of it's
the easiest to implement this season without making any drastic changes.
I'm not a fan of the cap system. I'll tell you why, because I feel like it may actually, not saying that too many players play for vanity, sarcastic, of course, everyone plays for vanity, but some guys may not actually prevent them from competing in a certain division because they want to go for an award, right? So if you're capped out before even joining a team, it might make you double think if you're going to actually go into that division and compete, if you can't be rewarded for it.
That's kind of the point, though, right?
Yeah, and at the same time, it never really, we've had these discussions before, whereas say seasons past where you sort by stats and then you'd look at the leaders who played in higher divisions and then we would just automatically discount them and move down. It's nothing new. We've overlooked players before because they played in higher divisions. And in that same vein, we can overlook players who have a higher rating than the division's average or whatever is discussed.
The thing that we had to address, right, was this issue where you're going to have a receiver of the year and he happens to be the 7th guy on the list because the top 6 play in Div 2 and they can't qualify for Div 3, for example.
Even though they have no chance of winning the award or potential, let's say they're not in contention in Div 2, but because they're playing there, they're automatically excluded from lower divisions, which was unfair in our opinion.
It's unfair, and this addresses that very well. I think this gets to the heart of the problem. It allows everyone to be competitive, and at the same time, it allows guys at the end of the season to only win one award. So even if they happen to be the best player in Division 2 and Division 3, it's still going to allow other people to correct me if I'm wrong.
I was going to say, to clarify on that, you can't win the same award in multiple divisions. So you can't be Receiver of the Year in Division 2 and Receiver in Division 3, as an example. Okay. But you can win DB in one, wide receiver in another, or QB in one and 2A in the other.
So long as you're not nominated in that higher division. You can't be nominated
in the same category twice. Exactly.
So with that, we're not actually going to take a break because I feel like we touched upon this a little bit longer than we should have, but for good reason, because this is something that we want to discuss. We want to hear your thoughts as well for the 3 of you that are listening, if that. If not, I know that this goes out in podcast format, right on the wall. Discuss, let us know. So moving into Division 4A now. Frosty Bronsons put up 50 on MVE, 51 to 42. We see the sort of efficient, dangerous James Nowakowski that we talk about and hope to see, but it's not always the case. Tell us a little bit more about this game.
Yeah, so we've been talking about it for the last few weeks now, trying to get back to that mindset that we were in the playoffs of the spring season. And James, we've been coaching him up, we've been strategizing, game planning, and he's been working that in. He's been actually developing in front of our eyes, and now we have dangerous playoff James Nowakowski back. He's in his Kobe Bryant mindset. He's throwing daggers. He's spraying the ball out. He's working the defense. He's making reads, and he's running still his typical running style of play. So James Nowakowski from the playoffs, who had an impressive 4-game stretch, is back, and it couldn't have come at a better time for the Frosty Bronsons.
So what happened to MVE this season? Not just this game, but this season to sort of seal their fate?
The thing, I was very impressed playing MVE. They're a very strong quick strike offense. Here's the thing. Okay, Gab Cote can be the best quarterback in the division when he's on. I don't think they have a complete roster. They're missing a couple of pieces on that team to really allow them to compete with the top dogs. It has nothing to do with Cote. Has nothing to do with Vincent Lauzon. Yep. Has nothing to do with Matt Rene at Snapper, who was an excellent late season addition to them. It has to do with the role players, right? They need a little bit more depth, I think, in that vein. And also, they need to keep their cool. Like they got heated against us numerous points throughout the game, even when they were winning. You know what I mean? And it kind of deterred from their rhythm. So they have to find a way to keep it under wraps and just focus on winning the game.
And on that flip side, what will we see about Frosty Bronsons going forward? This is really your time to talk about your team at this point.
Yeah, I've been talking about my team enough on this podcast all season. We'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll fall flat on our face in the first round of the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe we'll have an inspired 4-game winning streak that'll take us to the finals. It can go either way with this team, really. We'll just cross our fingers and hope for the best.
So Junkyard Dogs 45 over TOPSZN 27. You've been very high on TOPSZN throughout the season.
I have.
TOPSZN throughout the season.
TOPSZN throughout the season?
Yeah, it rings well. So does this surprise you? What's going on with this team?
You know what?
And Del, you're probably one of those 3 people too, so tweet in if you're listening.
Oh, so TOPSZN's are listening, so I gotta... I'm just
Give
gonna
him hell, Alex.
I'm gonna
Give
let
him
loose.
hell.
No, actually, I had something nice to say about TOPSZN. Is that when we did our preseason rankings, we put them as number 10 in the division, right? We didn't put them as number 1, number 2. This was a team that went 2-8 in Division C in the spring season. So to go 5-4 right now, for a chance to go 6-4, to make the playoffs and to have one of the most high-performing offenses is still an accomplishment for them this year. They've demonstrated that they can elevate their game and they can compete against some of the better teams in the division. Now, do they have flaws? Yes. What do they have? 5 INTs on defense throughout the year? These guys have to be able to come up. They have the athletes, right? There's no question that. They have to come up with maybe a more cohesive game plan to make some stops, to solidify those little weak spots and to make an elongated push in the playoffs. But definitely they've been impressive this year, and I have been high on them, and I will remain high on them throughout the course of their playoff lives.
Yeah, so on the flip side, JYD, they win their last game and seem to avoid their downward spiral. Mm-hmm. How do you compare the successful Junkyard Dogs to the sort of inconsistent one, and what's the difference between the two in your eyes?
Look, so at the end of the day, this is a QB-driven league, and JYD's success will always come down to a solid defensive effort coupled with a composed and confident Jason Rossi. And that's what he was this week. He had 167 yards. He had 5 TDs. He spread the ball around. We've known Rossi to lose his composure at some times, especially when things don't seem to go his way. He seems like a very proud guy who plays with his heart on his sleeve. But part of the key of success is to find a way to channel that passion and to stay level-headed and calm. And when Rossi's on his game, he can really ball. With any other quarterback in this division, he can hit the short pass. He'll draw you up front by just marching downfield methodically, and then he'll hit you over the top. He has the receivers to do it. He has all the components to put it all together. It's just a question of that mindset. Similar to James Nowakowski of Frosty Bronsons, it's when you work yourself up too much, sometimes that can be a major detraction from your game plan, and that's something that you learn over the years of playing QB. So I think it comes down to the quarterback for JYD, and you know what? If he goes on a roll, he can take them far into the playoffs.
So the last game on the docket, still Teamless 40 over the Tide 39.
So sorry,
very chirpy game as well.
Let me throw the mic. Let me pass the mic over to you in this one, and I hope that you'll break it down for us.
Okay, yeah. So as I mentioned, it was a very chirpy battle, back and forth. It was possession. Lonnie Johnson having thrown 1 INT to Brent Callender over Doug McKernan 0. However, as the possessions went back and forth, the Tide scored and went up with the convert by 7 with 5 plays left. Still Teamless marched down the field. Eventually, you put the ball in Justin McLean's hands for the touchdown and the game-winning 2-pointer. Wow. And the Tide had one last play to air it out for 40, and it was just batted down. Good, close game back and forth.
Good for you guys for going for 2. I always say it takes some kahunas to do that, but that's what the champions do. So GM, how do SST prevent themselves from getting complacent despite the regular season success?
I think it largely has to do with the fact that you have to enter each week separate from the week before. Don't rely on your past successes. Examine your opponent and just work from there. So at SST, they tend to melt down in the playoffs. So the Teamless brand, I guess, if you will, have been successful in the regular season for the most part, but always seem to fizzle when the attention is on them. So that's the problem in my eyes, and that needs to be addressed.
And final question. Talk a bit about this death spiral that the Tide are on, right? They're losers of their last 5 games, or is it 6 games now? Do they have a game remaining this week?
They do have a game remaining.
So it's 5 games straight for the Tide after 4-0 beginning to the season. This, to me, seems like one of the most epic season collapses that I've seen in a while in FPF.
I think it's also largely, these have all been close games that the Tide have just been unable to edge out. They're not a bad team at all. And in fact, I think it's more just the weighting of their early season schedule compared to the middle to late season. They've faced teams that have they've looked at the stat sheet as well. You see that the ball is being fed a little bit more liberally to Chris Pinsonneau. Doug McKernan has faced stronger rushers in the past few games as well. So whereas Doug, who has that quick strike offense but can roll out, he can run, when you have a little bit more pressure on him, it falls apart. But these have all been close games, so I think it's just been more than anything circumstances.
So just a final question now, just because you've piqued my curiosity on the issue. Are the Tide? You said that they've been their losing streak is a large product of the schedule that they face. But to be the best, you have to beat the best. So are the Tide going to be able to make a late season playoff push and compete with the best of Division 4A?
Hey, if they've been playing the best of 4A and they have been 1 TD games, 1 score games, going into the playoffs, it's really any given Sunday or whatever day the game is on. But I think that they are poised to do damage. They've already, if they make the playoffs, if they make it in, they'll be fine.
Fair enough.
So with that, we go into the playoff standings at the moment. Eagle will be kind enough to bring it up for you. So from 1 to 8 right now, still Teamless, Flying Weasels, Frosty Bronsons, 5 Star, Eskimo Brothers, Backyard Bullies, Junkyard Dogs, and Big TDs are the 8 right now in the playoffs. However, Bad Case right now and Golden Flashes. Golden Flashes coming off a win to keep themselves in. This is going to get interesting for Conference A at least. What are your thoughts?
I just want to clarify because I saw Yannick Doston and putting up a lot of hype for the Golden Flashes win, and they deservedly so. They beat a very good Gotham Knights team this week to keep their playoff hopes alive. But at the same time, they have a pretty big hill to climb. They have to win this week's game. I forget who they play.
They are playing Eskimo Brothers, so we will touch upon that a little bit later.
Strong team. And they also have to have the Big TDs lose their game versus Nominees, because Big TDs have the head-to-head matchup in this category. So,
provided there isn't a 3-way tie, and Bad Case win as well.
Bad Case are done.
Bad Case are done. That's correct, yes.
So it's going to be tough, but you know what? Anything can happen. Stranger things have transpired. This is a great playoff bracket as well. I think SST, regardless who they face, perhaps their favorite. You mentioned that Big TDs would be
the least favorable outcome.
Least favorable matchup.
Still Teamless.
You know what? A hot Golden Flash is coming into the 8th seed would be a little something to get those hairs rising on the back of your neck before the game. A little adrenaline pumping as well, because that might be a formidable opponent. But let's look after the other matchups here. Flying Weasels versus JYD. Like we said, JYD can show 2 faces any given week, right? And if the good JYD is there, these guys can definitely beat the Flying Weasels. If it's the bad JYD, Flying Weasels play such a composed game, and
very experienced,
and they're able to replicate their style of play each week so consistently that I think that they will pick apart the Junkyard Dogs if they don't bring their A game.
We have a tweet in from Yan Dustin saying, "Tell Hollowak we don't need to win the last one, just a loss by the Big TDs."
Huh?
It seems that the Div 4 writer is more on the ball than the Div 4 podcaster. Thank you, Jan, for tweeting in as well. It is
a big claim.
Yeah.
But how does that work if the Big TDs hold the win in the head-to-head? Maybe somebody can confirm that. But regardless, we'll defer to Jan Doston.
It would be very interesting. It's going to shake up the division a little bit more as well. So a team that hasn't had the spotlight on them and have been quietly floating under the radar. When you win when you're that last seed in the playoffs, you have really nothing to prove, and you can upset everyone at that point, and it's huge, and it's been done before.
And you've been playing for your lives for the last couple of weeks in that scenario. So you know what, like the playoffs is not going to be anything big for you at that point. Frosty Bronsons and the 3 seed, a lot can change with that. We're hoping that you guys actually beat 5 stars so we can stay in our 3 seed, and then maybe Eskimo Brothers can lose as well and give us that comfy 3rd seed. But right now, as it stands, Frosty Bronsons versus Backyard Bullies. This is a revised matchup from last year's Division D playoffs, except now Rich Humes is the quarterback, which obviously makes it much more interesting. Rich, coming into the season, Backyard Bullies were one of the favorite teams, and they've played very strong throughout the year. They've had a very tough matchup. They've lost a couple of close games, find themselves in the 6th seed, which might be a blessing in disguise for them, right? To come in as the underdog. And then there's a 5-Star versus Escone Brothers, which is kind of a coin flip in my mind at this point. 5-Star has been one of the hotter teams in the division.
Just want to jump in to clarify on that comment. So let's assume for a second that Golden Flashes were to lose. Their final record would be 3-7 with 6 points, and then they would have about, let's say, 194 plus whatever they lose PA against, with a record of 2-3. If Big TDs were to lose, they would have the same record and also be 2-3 rather. So in a 3-way tie break, they would actually go ahead because of all that.
On a 3-game tie with bad case, I understand. Exactly. And bring a third party into this.
Technically, Damps 25A would also kind of tie with them at that point. So.
Okay. So as Simon Dagenet's fantasy of a 3-way looms on the horizon, let's talk about Conference B here. GM, maybe you get some ideas.
I need a minute. So you can see it up on the screen. Les Malouds, 69ers, the Commission, No Name, who have jumped considerably considering they were almost out of the playoffs and left for dead a couple of weeks ago. TOPSZN, Gotham Knights, the Tide, and Nobodies with the Zoo at 9th, who have not been mathematically eliminated just yet.
Yeah, the Zoo actually have to play the Tide this week for their playoff lives, right? That'll be a fun game, won't it?
Yeah, you'll tell us how you feel about it in a little bit, but there is... we can still shake up Conference B a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. There's still some movement to take place over here. Maloud looked like a solid number 1 seed going into the playoffs, I got to tell you. Do you have any remarks on this, Jim? Anything pop off the screen?
Yeah, so, well, you said they look strong going in. They've been a consistent team, like season after season. They're a former Championship Division 5 team as well, so there's no surprise there. Very, very interested in the play of the 69ers. We've been talking about them seasons past where they do well, but there's always been that one thing missing, and it looks like it's finally coming together with them. I did see Dean Demetriou leave the field last week with a twisted ankle, so hopefully he'll be healthy continuing on. Everything does still look good for them. Commission have been great as well. As I talked about No Name, I really like the lower seeds here in their prime for upset because of how strong they've been playing for the last few weeks, with the exception of TOPSZN, of course, who need to step it up.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how a few weeks ago we were talking about No Name and how they had to win to stay in, like 3 weeks left in the season. They looked like they were fading, and now they find themselves in the 4th seed right now. They have played 10 games, so they can actually fall all the way down to 6 or 7. Even 8th, depending on the tie-breaking format in that category. But yeah, No Name has just played some really inspired football here down the stretch, and they will come into the playoffs hot, and they'll be a formidable matchup, right? So, yeah, definitely some good brackets shaping up here. And the Tide in 7th, right? The Tide is that big, juicy question mark, right? Like, we don't know what the potential of this team is right now. They could possibly go all the way to the conference finals if they catch a hot streak. So, you know, it's something to revise.
They are theoretically a team that would be well-built and primed to upset a monster like Les Malouds.
Especially with the first-round matchup versus the 69ers, right? Like we said, the 69ers are playing probably the best cohesive football we've ever seen from them. But the Tide are a team that's probably more experienced than them, right? Especially in terms of playoff and championship caliber experience. So that'll be a very good matchup if it were to happen that way.
So speaking of matchups, we have a few predictions to make. Nonosauce against Big TDs. Huge game for Big TDs here. They've had a couple of roster issues as well. They've been missing Jameel Springer and Jalen Greaves in key games where they've really needed to make their mark. Do you think that they have what it takes in this game?
So, you know, I just got to say, because we haven't spoken about them much this year because of their unfortunate record, but Nona Sauce, Joel Malkin is having a hell of a year. He has 550 yards, I think 13 touchdowns, and he's been on a tear in the last couple of weeks, especially putting up multiple 100-plus yard games. I think he had 5 TDs in one game last week. I mean, this guy is just the type of receiver where you throw it up to him and he goes and gets it, and he's really performed, as have the Chechere brothers. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But I'll take big TDs in this one because I have to believe that they're going to go out and win the game to give them the playoff spot, right? And if they lose, then this will be the last time I pick them for the year. So I'm going to give them the big TDs in this one.
So MVE against Past Our Prime.
Yeah, a little bit of a game that doesn't matter for playoff positioning right here. Past Our Prime came out and beat the bad case this week, like we called last week with Craig O'Brien balling out. I'm going to take, having just played MVE, I'm going to take Past Our Prime on their hot streak. I think that they're gonna play their style of football, and it's going to be like that style of Past Our Prime type of football where there's no mistakes, and MVE may make a crucial mistake or two, and that's going to be the difference. So I'll take Past Our Prime.
TOPSZN against 69ers with a little bit of shuffling. That could even be a potential first-round matchup.
What a game, eh? What a game. We got some good ones here. Give me the 69ers in this one, man. TOPSZN have been a little bit shaky lately. 69ers are playing some good football. I think that's going to continue this week. TOPSZN are one of those teams, though, we have to say, that have a fighter's chance every week because they play with a lot of passion. So if you catch them in rhythm with their passionate play, they can actually very well handle the 69ers, but I'll take the 69ers on the bet.
Eskimo Brothers against the Golden Flashes.
Yeah, Golden Flashes need to win, right? As Yannick Daston chimed in, or they just need everyone to lose. And actually, I think that's going to be the case. They're going to have to be sitting at home after their game hoping that Big TDs lose as well, because I'm going to pick the Eskimo Brothers in this one.
Flying Weasels against Backyard Bullies, another great game and a potential playoff matchup.
Yeah, it is a great game, isn't it? The Flying Weasels have just played consistent football all season. The Backyard Bullies have been up and down, but they have that extreme potential. I'm going to take the Backyard Bullies to make a statement before the playoffs, and hopefully it's not a statement that's going to find itself at our doorsteps with Frosty Bronson, a potential first round matchup. But the Backyard Bullies are big, they're mean, they're strong, and they're going to win this game versus the Flying Weasels.
The Tide against the Zoo, I think that this may even be a win and in case for the Zoo.
That's exactly what it is.
Which is very cool. You control your fate here, basically.
Okay. What do you think? What do you think's gonna happen, Jim? Because I'm at a loss for this one. My heart's telling me pick the Zoo because I like those guys. I like the way they compete, and I want them to win.
I fully agree with you in this case, but I think that top to bottom, the Tide are a more complete and better built team.
Can we just talk about how the Tide are in Week 10 fighting for a playoff spot in a win and in situation when we thought they were a really good team come Week 1 and 2?
Yeah,
like anything can happen in this game, right? We expect them to win, but the Zoo have a shot. They have a big shot here.
Just a shout out to Frank K as well. There was I played Frank K in Division 5 a couple of weeks ago, and then he had a back-to-back game, and then played in Division 4 as well. And I don't know what he ate that day, but he went on a tear. I think he threw for 5 touchdowns. He caught 3 in his Div 5 game as well. So
it's a total pleasure watching him play. I saw him bust off about a 20-yard run in his game this week, and then he took a shin-to-shin contact and fell full speed onto the turf. He was down for about 2 minutes, got right back up, took the next snap, and scored a touchdown. So he's a real trooper. And so I'm going to actually say the Zoo are going to pull the upset in this one and win, because the Tide haven't won in 5 weeks, and that's bad. So give me the Zoo. Tide, you guys just prove me wrong if you want.
And the last game on the docket, still Teamless versus 5-star.
Give me 5-star all the way. I'm just kidding. I want the SST to win this game because we need 5-star to fall in fourth. However, 5-star have been perhaps the hottest team in the whole division right now. This will be in my opinion, the most interesting game of the week. I hope I have the chance to watch this one. I'm going to take 5-star just to be a little bit controversial on this show. And what do you think? Obviously, how's this game going to play out? You don't have to give me your pick.
I can still give it because I'm going to give context to it as well. So I guess fortunately, because this will be a great game to watch, but unfortunately for me, this is in the running for game of the week to be filmed, and my record of filmed game of the weeks is very, very poor.
Vote for Pedro. Vote for him.
Really? I did vote for this game as well.
I did not.
No?
Get your votes.
I voted for every game that was not this game. So anyone on Still Teamless listening to this right now, do the same, please.
I feel like Lonnie deserves to be up there with the type of season he's had.
Yeah, but Lonnie already has a filmed game of the week. We can go with that one in the 35+ game.
That's true. Forget what I said.
Yeah. So I think that this does not bode well if it wins game of the week.
Okay. So we'll throw it up to game of the week.
FPF community, you know what that means? Time to be trolls.
When you ask the internet to do something, they will.
GM Clefter's the master of reverse psychology, trying to get his game voted in here.
Oh no, not even. So what? You'll see my one catch for 8 yards, and that'll be it. Like,
it's not all
that's
about
the
you,
game.
GM. Not all about
No,
you.
but that's what I'm saying is that this has nothing to do with me, and I don't want the showcase of our.
I want to see somebody on 5-star try to match up with McLean.
Okay.
I think that'll be interesting. I think the only guy who could possibly do it is Jordan Moses because of the speed matchup, but that's what I want to see.
And he has before in Division 3.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in Conference A and you're worried about an SST matchup in the playoffs, you should definitely vote for this game.
Let's see here. It doesn't change anything because you have to go through the SST eventually.
Yeah, but now you have film to study.
Oh, it's true. But we've played them, and they laid the hurt on us. So
some game film might have helped you now, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So with that, we wrap up our podcast in a rather unsavory way for me.
I'm excited, GM. I'm excited for the playoffs.
Honestly, like the playoffs are my favorite things to talk about. And at the same time, if you're going to be out during that time, watch the games because some of the best FPF football is played during the playoffs, especially the opening rounds. You see some of the biggest crowds amassed as well.
And we're going to get games of the week going into the playoffs too. So not just week 10, but week 1,
Speaking
week
of
2,
unprecedented things, so that's going to be really, really cool to see. So shout out to Lance Daniel for that as well. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Simon Dagenet 3-way, unfortunately. Elephant in the room. When are you guys?
Is that it?
Just cut it.